Hasn't listed a horse if you're looking for one, only 60,000. I was talking to Carl. Only 60,000.
I'll take you a day about my Patriots.
Smokers.
And you gotta go to Texas for it. So.
Yeah.
Oh, Texas is the farm part.
Okay, we are live.
That's very long.
Okay, I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting Monday, January 12th, 2026 to order. First order of business is I'd like to welcome Cynthia White as our new CAO. Thank you. And go ahead.
The only item for discussion is the 2026-2023 5-year financial plan, preliminary discussions.
Can I get a mover or seconder? Councillor Weitzel and Councillor Reed. Then we will begin.
So I will start if you don't mind. I put a very nice presentation together that will be on the screen. Ultimately, I'll go through the slides anyways. I think it's important to frame budget discussions as a reminder for council, but also for community members who may watch the video or may attend the meetings, to try and do a little bit more community education so they can truly understand the hard decisions that have to be made around budget every single year. So I'll start with the slides. It's really a very key thing to think about. We cannot run a deficit. So provincial and federal government can run a deficit, but a municipal government is legally bound because we are a child of the province. We are legally bound to run a balanced budget. So we never really make money, and we can never run in the deficit. So there's no projects that we can do that can take us below that zero, keep in mind. And when we're talking about how we generate funds to operate and to do projects, there's, again, provincial and federal government have numerous means of generating income. So they have, provincial government has personal property tax, corporate income tax, property transfer tax, natural resource revenue. The federal government has, again, personal income tax, corporate income tax, energy taxes, customs and import duties. Municipal governments have property taxation, user fees, and transfers or grants from other levels of government. And ultimately, we do all the work that touches your lives every day, right? So your water and sewer, your roads, your recreation facilities, emergency management, bylaws, whereas a lot of the things that provincial and federal governments are much more removed. Most of us will never, need assistance in international situations where you might have to go to an embassy. Most of us never actually have that experience, but pretty much all of us drink water. And so it's really important to recognize that we have limited means of generating revenue, but we do a lot of the day-to-day hard work that again impacts everybody's life. Municipal, and there are, of those three types of revenue, we only actually control two of them, and that's property taxes and user fees. Transfers from seniors levels of government, we have two sort of fixed types of funding, and that is the CCB Act, which was the gas tax. And that's almost 100,000. It's $99,930 that we get annually, and that's for capital project work. We also receive small community fund to help with our operations. That's about $320,000-ish. And those are the only two fixed funds we get from higher levels of government. Everything else is grant based, which means we compete with other municipalities for those funds. They're unknown. We don't necessarily know what the province or the feds will include as their priorities in their budgets. You know, right now, mostly it has to do with housing and climate action. So those are places where we have to align with those grants. We might have a project that does not align with any grant that's currently available, so that project has to either be self-funded or we have to deprioritize. With grants, also, it's very important to recognize that for most grants, we require some amount of co-payment. So if we are applying for a project that's $10 million, we have to have $5 million in the bank to co-pay that project. So I wanted to frame sort of the big picture of infrastructure, because that's our biggest area of concern as a municipal government, is our infrastructure. Nationally, there's a $600 billion funding gap for infrastructure. 60% of infrastructure belongs to municipal governments in this country. Municipal governments get about 10 cents per tax dollar. So out of all the different ways the government's taxed, we get about 10 cents for every dollar of taxes that's generated. So thinking about in Canal Flats, we have $32 million of value in our infrastructure. Replacement cost in 2017, when it was last assessed through an asset management investment plan, it would have been about $64 million to replace our infrastructure in 2017. And that's in the small village of Canal Flats. In the 70s, around the 70s, late 60s, early 80s, there was a boom in most municipalities. Things were built. The federal government was building arenas and curling rinks in small communities. There was a lot of growth in municipalities. People were moving from the farms into cities. And so all that infrastructure went in across the country, and guess when it's all coming to end of life? Right now. Every municipality is experiencing the exact same scenario. So when we're talking about grants, that's a really important thing to think of, because every single grant we apply on from the province and the federal government, most other municipalities are also applying on that funding, and they all have a cap, and it's not guaranteed. So, communities that applied on, let's say, the CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund, which was a really exciting fund. People could, municipalities could build more housing, could make it easier to build housing. There was all kinds of stuff. Most municipalities did not get that. So there's lots of times we'll apply on funding group. We're going to be competing against communities that have exciting projects, that have had natural disasters. We'll be competing with Abbotsford for any DMAF funding. The city of Merritt didn't get their DMAF funding for their dike project, but Prince Rupert got funding for underground infrastructure through the DMAF fund. And we're not even sure that those kinds of funds are going to open again. So there's a lot of every year we're kind of what can we apply on? What is going to be available, and how we're going to use it to maintain and upgrade our infrastructure, let alone build new infrastructure, right? So replacement cost in 2017, $64 million for what we currently owned at that time. And every time the community grows, it just adds to our infrastructure bill, right? It's also very important to recognize that when we're talking about inflation, right? And so I'm saying in 2017 dollars, 2025 dollars, 2030 dollars, municipal governments don't use the consumer price index. They use the building construction index, because a lot of our materials that we require and a lot of our projects that we work on are actually related to building and materials. So whether it be underground pipe or materials for physical building, doors, windows, those are all related to the building construction price index, which is typically 2 to 3% higher than the consumer price index. So in the presentation, you'll see there are 4 years identified there. And in 2022, the building construction price index went up 11.1%, whereas CPI, so the consumer price index, only went up 3.5%. But you'll see that most of the time, 2023 is kind of an anomaly year, CPI went up higher than the building. But normally you'll see there's a 1 or 2% difference between the two. So that's really important for us to think about when we think about the cost of projects and how we manage our budget, because every time we buy something or we plan to buy something and we put it off, the price of that is going to go up, 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 right? The price of a fire truck has doubled in the last couple of years. So when you're thinking about, you know, your capital planning, we're thinking, okay, well, in today's dollars, that's going to cost us this. If we put it out too long, we're going to be in a bit of a scarier place. So what does this mean for municipalities? I think that kind of, you know, we're experiencing high replacement costs across the country. We're competing for those grants with bigger communities who have people whose job it is just to write grants, right? Not on it's not on top of their other jobs. It's just their job. And unfortunately, there was a reluctance, and there's been a long reluctance for people to raise taxes. And what happened in those 70s and 80s, it's like when you buy a new vehicle, right? You don't start immediately saving for that next vehicle. Most people don't. Probably some people do, but most people don't. And what happened in that boom, that infrastructure boom, is nobody started thinking about what's going to be the cost of end of life when I have to replace this infrastructure in 50 years. So there was no investment in reserve funding in communities for replacement 50 years from now. But now we're being required in regards to getting our gas tax. We have to have an asset management plan that lays out for us what those capital costs are going to be as we move forward, or they can cut us. So, you know, we have to.
Sorry?
This is an older version of us.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's okay. So when we're thinking about our budgets, it's really important for us to dig deep and think about what those costs are for us. So, you know, when we did sewer operating revenue in 2024, which was our last audited budget, for example, it was $149,500.
$194.
Was
Yeah, 94.
sorry, what did I say?
94.
145.
Okay, 194. I don't know what I was saying. $194,000 of revenue, but our operating expenses were $184,000. Okay, so we're not really, and then we had $423,000 of capital work, which we may or may not have gotten grants for at that point in time. Again, we have to do capital work pretty much every year in order to keep up with our infrastructure. So there's not a lot of leeway, right? Like there's not a lot of play in these numbers. That's a pretty tight multi-million dollar budget when you're starting to get down to $10,000 here and $10,000 there. In 2025, one great thing that's happened is council, sorry for people who appreciated this, but by removing that 10% early payment, we're generating an additional almost $13,000 of revenue. Right? So that's a really important number because it sounds small, but everything we do, because we're a small community with a small tax base, is a small amount. But in 2025, $184,000 was budgeted from the general revenue to the water revenue. And $39,000 was budgeted from general revenue to sewer revenue to offset expenses. Ideally, water and sewer would be their self-sustaining funds, so that we don't have to take it out of the general revenue. It's a bit of a touch and go for some people. In 2026, we still have water and sewer receiving some of our general revenue to operate. We'll see a little bit of a decrease because of that almost $13,000. We may not have to transfer anything to sewer operating. We'll still have to transfer to water operating. But this is a really important thing. So I said we have in 2017, $62 million worth of that would cost to upgrade all of our infrastructure. we have $1.5 million in reserves. So, and we have just under $500,000 left in our holding capacity. So if we had a major incident, we would not necessarily have the funds to manage that. So if we had a significant issue at the sewage lagoon, or we had a major main break, we would be in a very unpleasant position in regards to being able to pay for those things. And then the province doesn't necessarily, and the feds don't necessarily come to your rescue. So Soyuz is a great example. Not long ago, their water treatment plant was on the verge of failure, and they were talking about a 40% tax increase, with I think the second year somewhere around 20. Because there was no money in their bank account to fix that water treatment plant. So that's a frightening thing, because if we are required to make a major, so the province didn't come and bail them out. They had to tax people. They cut a lot of other things, but they had to generate that revenue to manage the upgrades to that plant. Look at Calgary right now with their water main issues. They don't have the monies in reserve to fix it. They haven't been maintaining it, which is another issue, right? We have to have money to maintain what we do or what we own so that it actually comes to its end of life. So I just wanted to set a bit of a, so people can hear this, that we're not just making numbers up, we're not best guessing things, right? So we, in September of 2025, council received the Village of Canal Flats Water Master Plan Level of Service Review. And in that was identified that our water supply no longer meets interior health contamination thresholds. Our water storage is currently deficient. And we have 33 hydrant nodes that do not meet required fire flow criteria. And with any growth, that will increase 2 to 3 hydrants. We have things that make us be aware of replacement or renewal of infrastructure. Typically, age is our biggest factor. So when we come to the end of useful life, anticipated useful life, that's a 50-year road, we start thinking, okay, what can we do to extend the life of that road? Or do we need to? Has it actually worn better than we thought it was going to, and we're going to be able to manage it? We don't have to do anything. Failure rate. So let's say we have a main that has had 5 leaks between a certain distance in the last 2 years. Well, now we're getting to a point where maybe we're putting more effort into repair, and we need to start thinking about replacement. So how often is it failing? The risk of failure, which increases as the age of the infrastructure goes up. Community growth impacts our infrastructure, and community demand for level of service impacts what infrastructure and how we prioritize that infrastructure. With the example of our water system, there's the report recommended 10 phases of replacement and upgrade work, but that didn't include the treatment solution. And this is not because this infrastructure is failing, it's that it doesn't meet the current demand on it. So this infrastructure is okay and it will continue to go. It doesn't meet the needs of the community. And so that's a very different kind of way. Normally we see end of life being the big issue, but right now, this infrastructure without any further growth does not meet the needs of our community. And one of the reasons for that is things changed, right? When this infrastructure was built, the standards were different, best practices were different, legislation was different. And now we have a system that's not sufficient for our needs. And the recommended work in order to bring things up to the best standard and to make sure we have the fire flows and make sure we have enough storage and to make sure our storage system functions properly is $15.5 million in 2025 dollars. So what's that going to look like if we have a 5 or 6% inflationary rate every year between now and we can actually get that work done, right? And that's one infrastructure system. That's just water. That's not sewer. That's not our buildings. It's not our fleet. It's not our roads. It's one piece of infrastructure. And it's a scary number. And I think it's important people understand the cost of operating the municipality and meeting the service demands that people want in their municipality. Everybody needs to have clean water. Everybody needs to be able to flush the toilet. Right? Do you have to have paved roads? No, you can have gravel roads. Do you have to have an arena? No, but it would be sad. But you have to have water and sewer, or you're not a municipality anymore. Right? That's just the way it is. And so critical infrastructure. So reserve funds are really important, and you're gonna see that we're gonna ask you for some contributions to the reserve funds during this budget cycle. Again, you know, we only have $1.5 million currently in the bank. So if we had to apply for infrastructure grants, other than the strategic community priorities grant, which is 100%, everything else is going to be a cost share, typically 50-50. So if we have $15 million of work to do in one system, infrastructure system, we're nowhere near that 50-50 cost share. So I've given a list of reserve funds and where we are currently in those reserve funds. And again, you can see very little growth in those reserve funds year over year. Mostly we're relying on interest in the funds, and of course we get almost $100,000 now. Before it was a little bit less, but in the 2025 10-year deal, we get about $100,000 in community building funds, or what we used to call gas tax. But it's not. We don't have a lot of money in these reserves. And when you have reserves like this, you can't just take from one reserve to pay for another reserve, right? You've allocated these things to specific reserves, and so you have to use them for those reserves. They're bylaws. So the ones that say they're statutory, these are by bylaw. And then we have our development cost charges reserves, which are, you know, dollars ultimately. So not of any real significant input or to any of our projects. And those are dedicated for specific projects because that's how DCCs work. You have to identify what projects they're allocated for. So that being said, what we want to do now, as I've set the depression, I can see Councillor Marcel going.
That sounds like my household budget.
Yeah. And I'm very plain spoken about these things, and I try to make it as understandable. I'm not an accountant. You'll see me sometimes. I will look at a net to confirm some funds or some numbers. Not an accountant. My experience with this stuff is to make it as plain as possible for people to understand. We cannot deal with a major infrastructure issue at this point. Okay. So we're going to go through the senior leadership team's presentations around the projects and some work that needs to get done this year. So you have a nice long, super paper spreadsheet. And I'm putting them all together this year because I kind of wanted you to see, in particular in the capital area, what our 5-year, and then we're working towards a 10-year capital plan. So you can see further out. And ideally we'll get to a point in the next couple of years where we have a 20-year capital plan, where every piece of infrastructure in the next 20 years that's coming to end of life or requires a retrofit, a midlife retrofit, is identified in that 20-year capital plan with potential funding sources. So we'll go through each department's operational and capital requests, and you'll see, sadly, in the capital plan that there are things I've tried to identify where we would get the funds from and which ones we don't have any funds identified for. So we simply would have to figure it out. Because I've already spent your $1.5 million.
So given that we don't have, or we cannot run a deficit,
Mhm.
I don't know how it is that we can ask for things when we don't know where the funds are to pay for it.
Well, so that would be the thing. So this is where we say, these are the works that need to happen. We now come to you and say, which of these works do you think are important? I think there are some on here that you don't need to do, right? But are they super important to the community? And that's where your role is, right? Because you're the voice of the community. What is so important to the community that we have to prioritize it versus deprioritize it? So are there things that we can push out? So for instance, we can't push the fire truck out anymore, and it takes a minimum right now of 2 years to get a new fire truck. So if we have to have the fire truck replaced in 2029, then you have to be doing the purchase and ordering the chassis in 2026. So you have to have some of the money in 2026 for the new fire truck. Otherwise, we're not getting a new fire truck. Right, so we have, you as the council now, we've told you what kind of work should get done. Given our current financial situation, you now have to prioritize what does get done. And or whether there's gonna be some taxation to assist with some of this. So I'll start maybe with Matthew with Parks and Recreation Operations. I'm calling it that now.
Park and Rec.
You're doing everything.
So let's start with your original requests.
Okay,
You want this?
I don't have that, so.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's just your stuff, but in a more, it's a condensed list, so the justifications and.
So is your goal just about 2025, 2026?
2026.
Okay, 2026. The font isn't huge on here.
Do you need some glasses?
It's the second line. Okay, so, we're gonna start at the very top. So the table shelters, the post of the table shelters, so I replaced, most of them. I think there's 7, looking back at my notes. I think there's. Yeah, there's 7, so there's 7 posts that need to be replaced. So those are the posts. There's basically the shelters over top of the picnic tables. So there's 2 posts that hold the shelter. So I mean, we were handed the beach over a number of years back, and none of them were, they were probably put in there. They're probably the original ones that were put in there, and they're starting to rot out. And it's a major liability to have those. I mean, they're exposed to weather, they're exposed to wind all day, every day. So in order to keep it safe for everybody, they all need to be replaced.
How old are they, Matthew?
I'm not sure. But I mean, we've replaced all of the ones leading up to the 7 that need to be replaced in order of, how rotten out they were.
Yeah, I mean, if they're rotten, they're rotten. I'm just like, usually with regular staining, shouldn't posts, like, they should last 20 years.
Yeah, but they get watered every day or every second day for irrigation in the summertime. So I mean, it's wet, it's, they dry out, it's wet, they dry out, it's, they likely weren't pressure treated. We are putting pressure treated posts now.
Yeah, they weren't.
They likely were not pressure treated before.
Yeah, they're just
Well,
regular.
those are 25 years plus.
Yeah, 25.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they'd be all that for sure. 'Cause
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking 30-ish.
Yeah, I think the beach was created in the 80s, and I don't know when the shelters were being put up, but I mean, they're long overdue.
Okay.
Park install repainting, so that is an as per quoted item. They just get really faded out. They're really faded out, and you know what? It's if you've all been in the beach in the summertime, it's super, super busy. And in order to keep people, as confined as possible, the parking or the lines definitely help with that. Because, if you start splitting stalls, then you're not able to get as many people in the parking lot as possible. So arena, the plant and operation light. So it's just a light, so my plant is detached from my building. So I just want a light that's able to, that lights up inside the arena, like a little green light, like nothing to alarm people, but it's just be a little green light that comes on the corner, and it would tell us that the plant is in operation. So that, it's easier to do plant checks when the plant is running instead of going back there and say, geez, I can't catch it running. So, and that happens, like it's tricky when, like a weekend, this last weekend, if you don't have a lot of usage, your plant doesn't run all that much. And it's, as per Technical Safety BC, they like to see operating, your plant in operation plant checks more so than when they're not operating. Concrete pad at Portage. So we had a picnic table on the corner. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the park, but there is a memorial rock with the history with the CO that got shot on the main strip. They put that in 2-3 years ago. And there's a, John Tilley has a memorial table that was right on the very corner. And basically they don't look good together. Like, I mean, we had to remove the table because it got damaged. And we had Bid Group, they repaired the table for us. But we want to move the table away from the rock because I mean it's just too crowded. I mean it doesn't seem right now that the rock is there. Restaining of the pavilion. So the pavilion, you know, it's that was built in 2008 or 20, I want to say 2021. So all of the mostly the south and west facing posts are starting to be very faded. And they need restaining. So that budget item is carried, like we did have it last year, but we never put it in, or we never got the work done. So that is carried over. So that is my part. So that is just operation. You have the
Okay, that's okay. So there were a few other things on there, like Christmas tree light. Like, oh no, sorry, that's 27. Never mind.
Yeah.
The security cameras, though, you do have in 2026 for at the Lions Park baseball field.
Yeah, so we I don't know if you well, we've had a lot of vandalism in the last couple years for sure. A lot has been we've had a lot of man hours to put back together the bathrooms. You know, there's a lot of vandalism inside the bathrooms, and it'd be nice, not that we're going to put the cameras inside the bathroom, but it'd be nice to have, you know, cameras, and as well as the pavilion. There's some so when we did when the pavilion was built, with the remainder of the monies that we had, we bought some beautiful picnic tables that we put inside. We've had to scrap one of them because it got completely ruined, and there's a couple now that are on their way out. So I think cameras would be, you know, just to have cameras out, you know, so that to you know, potentially prevent some vandalism, that'd be great.
Sorry, so I don't see that in the Parks and Rec, the cameras. The next item that I had was,
Oh, sorry, that's what I'm talking about. I'm looking at the wrong thing.
so we're still in operation, so we've got.
So I'm looking at the capital. plans.
So there's three more things on the operation. So there's relocating the toddler swing.
Okay, sorry. Okay, relocating the toddler swing. So this with the splash park coming in, and I assume it's still on plan for coming in this year. The toddler swing is on the north end of the playground, and we have the pea gravel inside the playground to for ground protection, for fall ground protection, and it's going to be really close to the location of the splash park. And I think it'll be a maintenance nightmare to have pea gravel right beside a splash park. I think, you know, kids are gonna, you know,
Track rocks and
they're gonna track rocks, as you know, they're likely gonna pack rocks as well, like, you know, handfuls of rocks to the splash park. So
Just speaking in terms.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, I think
I'm thinking, you know, if we relocate it to the west side, which would be towards the arena, we'd have to relocate a couple benches and stuff like that. But that's all works that is going to be done within, like with my department, and there should be no material costs for doing those works, because we're going to use the same retaining materials, and the same gravel is just going to be moved over to that corner. So the cost will be, because we will have a bench that we need to relocate, because there's a bench on the west side currently on the playground, and we need certain distances away from playground equipment, you know, to hard objects. So that one bench is going to have to be removed for that.
relocated.
Yes, it's going to have to be relocated. Taller swing.
And the other one would be Portage, if you want to speak to Portage. About the flower beds.
I don't think that's.
Yeah,
part of it.
I don't have
It's
that.
not on there?
That's not on there, no, but
But the next one that we
Benching
do,
around the bed on Portage?
Yeah, but that's in 2020.
Oh, it's over, oh, okay, not this year, sorry,
No, it's all good.
was.
Restaining the directional signs. They haven't been done for, I want to say 3-4 years. And I think it's important to have those restained to look good, you know,
It's definitely noticeable on the community.
now, I thought that we had that as a budget line item last year, and just sworn that was part of the request.
It was last year.
Yeah, and I believe it was carried over.
So, yeah, it's just I don't see it in the 2025 to be carried over. It looks like a new spend.
Yeah,
I don't remember that one, I remember it. Maybe it was a last minute axe.
It might have.
Might have been, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember. Yeah.
I think we had intended for it to happen and.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this time we ask some questions on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The pavilion restaining is of course maintenance, and that's good. Is that a job that you will be doing in-house, or is that a job you will be contracting?
We're planning to do it in-house, so we're hoping to keep that cost down. We're hoping to keep that cost, significantly down, but it will be done in-house.
Okay, and that kind of leads to the next question. Like you're relocating the color swing, and you're saying that that's going to be in-house. So basically, this is labor to do that work.
Yeah.
So that gets to be shown as a specific item, not in the normal labor number. I don't know how that works.
Well, so my experience with budgets is that you wouldn't necessarily, that this type of thing wouldn't necessarily be something you would see annually, the way you've got it here, the way you do it here. You would have a maintenance budget or a labor budget that the managers identify year over year, right? Because with something like this, is that you're gonna find the year that we decide we need to do a project, now we have to ask for extra money that's gonna result in a tax increase that we won't need necessarily next year, right? So it's.
So this is what I was asking, is basically Matthew is going to sit down and say, this is what our guys are doing this day and this day.
Mhm.
And so $3,000 of that figure is actually going to be spent on moving the playground,
Yeah,
which is not an additional cost to the village.
So labor allocation, we should be having, sort of interrupt Paul, the labor allocation, the way it's normally done is you have a timesheet, and then, Matthew's labor would normally be probably within Arena and whoever else that he has. And there should be an allocation out of Arena into, it would be Parks and Rec for, whatever that is, or however much time that they spend, if they are tracking it in such a way.
so there will be, I mean, for moving something like that, there will be some requirement for cement, there will be requirement potential. So this $3,000 is not inclusive of labor.
So just.
It's
another-
That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Matthew said that there would be no costs, use the existing.
We are, yes, but there will be minimal costs. There will be concrete because we have to relocate
So this is.
One thing I can suggest is when you're planning on doing that, do contact the community group or help volunteers to help with that.
Yeah.
The reason we're doing that is because of what they want.
No, I was just trying to decide if this is labor over.
No, this is just.
The regular day.
No, it's materials and
Material.
stuff.
If this is material, that's different. Yeah. I was asking.
Yeah.
The directional sign restaining, we chatted about this actually last year. Are you planning to stain again, or are you planning to paint?
I think we're gonna do the same as the building here.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
That's our plan, because it is too hard to keep everything wood. To keep it, they look good when they're stained, and you gotta keep up on top of the stain, but eventually, you've lost kind of the fact that it's wood underneath.
Yeah, I think
So
painting is-
a solid stain is much easier moving forward.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I was just wondering if that's this. So this is basically the cost of stain or paint.
Yeah.
The backflow prevention certification, is that actually Parks and Rec, or why is that?
So what we did with this one here, because we had the discussion in our senior meeting last weekend, is that instead of increasing every budget by, we just wanted to have a line item, because instead of adding, $150 or $200 of the cost to recertify each and every one of them, because, in our budget maintenance, we thought we'd have one line item, because we have 15 backflow preventers, and I'm not gonna increase my budget by $150 in the arena, but the actual hard costs are gonna be, $2,500 per year as a whole for the municipality with the backflow prevention.
Just for Parks and Rec?
No, for all the buildings.
All the buildings.
Yeah, when you take care of all the buildings, right?
Yeah, so when we call the, once all of our backflow preventers are installed, when we call the plumber for certification, he's gonna do all of them, and it's gonna cost an extra $2,500, you know, as a whole to the community with the backflow prevention.
And the pavilion restaining, are you using paint or stain on that?
Well, I'm hoping that one's fresh enough that I'm hoping, because we do have some materials from Golden Timber Frame. So we're hoping to be able to use the same materials to be able to do that.
And so this again is labor that's already, like you pay everybody 8 hours a day,
Yeah,
and how it's allocated.
yeah, like I that one I particularly didn't break down as per, materials. So the materials it won't be $5,000 in materials for stain. I just had some labor in there, so I mean, that will ultimately come down.
Thank you, and I'm still not clear on this, like these labor only items are not additional costs to the village, like we don't have to budget those. It's just a matter of budgeting his staff time.
Yeah, so he manages the staff time, and he's saying that, but every time you buy a paintbrush or a paint tray, so no project we do is labor only, and that's what he should be capturing in
Yes,
this.
so basically that number, if you've got all the stain, is maybe call it $1,000 for brushes and rollers and whatever, or rental of equipment to do it, whatever. Because what this does to me is it tells me that we've got to add this to the budget, like it's a line item, but it's not really, it's a labor. The labor is the
That's
same,
It's,
labor is the same if the guy's sitting under the tree having a cigarette as if he's painting a.
Yeah. so when we put it together, can I steal that, Matthew? Sure. When we put it together, right, from the staff gave me some input on this, and ultimately what we're talking about is most of these projects the fund, what you're looking at, that number is not labor. Now he's saying that the pavilion one, it's gonna be a lot less because he didn't break it down all the way, but most of these are not labor included because we already have the labor. These are either going to we require a contractor or these are materials and supplies. So it is new funds when you do it this way.
So you're saying, yeah, okay, so that's what I'm asking. So these are new funds to do this work.
Yeah.
Not the labor to do it.
Not the labor to do it.
Labor we're already.
Yeah, labor you're already paying. Okay, and so maybe I'll get Chuck to go through his requests for additional funds this year for projects that need to happen.
Okay.
Do you really
start?
You really
I don't have that paper either.
No, but you have your 3 on there that you.
Yeah.
So ultimately the dike and the.
Like dangerous tree and paving.
Yeah, so with the dike, we're as everyone knows, we have dikes now.
Dike.
That is part of one. It needs to be maintained. So we need to budget for yearly maintenance. Vegetation removal, abatement, whatever you want to call the maintenance part. Potentially some gravel works, whatever it takes. For maintaining.
And if we don't end up because it is such a question, let's say we didn't have any expenditures for this year, that 10,000, that would go back into an operating reserve, but is there a specific, are we keeping a specific one?
I
For
think
the
it should
dike?
be a
Yeah, I think we're
specific
gonna have-
yearly, every year.
And then it just goes into surplus if we don't.
Yeah.
spend it.
We picked a number just to put in the slot because we have no idea what it's gonna entail. It could be less, it could be more.
But then we'll also have the new dike around the sewage lagoon area, and that will also require maintenance. So we're probably gonna get to a place in the next 2 to 3 years where doing vegetation abatement is gonna be fairly significant.
Can see it being quite labor intensive, actually.
And so it may be that we don't have the internal resources to even do that much work. So we have to consider that we may have to either get additional equipment or contract it out, or we don't even know at this point. Becoming a diking authority without anybody teaching people how to become a diking authority is a very challenging process.
Yeah, so that's why we were trying to get our DUK to take it on. They kind of haven't done that yet. So.
They don't want.
No, they don't want it.
They don't want that.
But we want dike with water tight.
So next would be
Dangerous tree room.
dangerous tree removal. That speaks for itself. In my mind, we have multiple trees within our own properties, boulevards, for example. Ready to falling over currently. It's a hazard. Because we're liable, ultimately. If you're walking with your child down the walkway, a tree comes down and smacks you, well, that's not good.
And will you guys be following the trees or will?
I would
contractors?
suggest contract.
And Chuck, what I didn't get to ask you last week was, will this be an annual program? Will we have one big year and then some follow-up funds to maintain?
We actually contacted a company that does this for other municipalities, Greenleaf.
Yeah, I know.
And they came and assessed, and they felt like one and done kind of scenario. Do it 1 year,
And then,
maybe in a couple years reassess.
okay, so it'd be do it, monitor it,
Yes.
determine later, okay. And then your paving budget was the last one.
Paving budget is big. Sorry. Currently, we $45,000 a year to maintain. It's just simply not. With pothole patching, we've bought the bags of pothole patch that we can do ourselves. It's labor intensive, but it's easy to do. But it's a Band-Aid. So just the materials for that is about $3,000 a year for the bit of pothole patching we do. But that still cuts into the 45,000, which leaves 42,000 for paving, which that doesn't get money. That won't even do half the block.
Wow, quite a lot, and COVID.
So we have, for example, there's a section in Granger Road just past Big Pine Sheep Lane. It's gravel. We still have gravel roads in the community, which is okay, I guess, but it costs more to maintain gravel and pave. So I'd like to increase as much as possible to start paving more, reduce maintenance costs.
Do you think that, like, honestly, like, because I don't know what the cost is to maintain gravel, but you know, I've had lots of residents complain about pine and
Yes.
and how bad pine is. So is changing that to gravel like a better use of that 100? I don't even know if 100,000 could do pine.
100,000.
No.
Or maybe half a pine.
Pine has to be dug up and the base has to be redone. It has to be built up and realigned. It's a big undertaking. That's why it has to be done.
$500,000.
Wow.
So with the maintenance of gravel, you probably need a grader,
Which we don't have.
and then you need dust control. And you need to have additional gravel annually to resurface it. So it actually becomes quite expensive.
Very expensive.
Doesn't last very long.
Well, it's annually, just about.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only time it's not bad is in a normal winter. If it's this winter, freeze thaw, it's a nightmare to try and plow it. Because the plows just sink into the gravel and now you're wrecking your plows, you're digging up the street unintentionally, which now you have to go back and fix.
Do we ever have to worry about the water that comes down the hill and the way it runs through when we're doing that? And we still think we can get it done for 100?
Or
Like up there?
I actually got a rec quote for 90,000.
Okay. And that would include all that engineering.
It doesn't need anything, but
So that's what I'm asking, like,
it
that's
just needs a skim coat of
Yeah.
fresh gravel and then pavement.
okay, so
It's
the
basically-
water's like, there is no extra engineering that needs to go into the water.
Not on that part. No.
And that's kind of why I picked on that part, because I know we can't afford to do anything else.
Right, and I recall Pine, once upon a time ago, there was some sort of estimates, and I believe it was, the number was 346, and that was a number of years ago.
So we're not gonna at least double that.
That's what I said.
So yeah, it's a long way, yeah, it's a lot of money for that one.
So with roads, the more maintenance funds we can put into roads, the better off we are. Crack sealing, pothole patching, even doing mill and overlays versus digging up the entire road surface will extend the life of the roads at a significantly less cost than shortening the end of life without proper maintenance, right? If we have a 50-year road surface and we're shortening that life because we're not doing the maintenance, we should be able to take that with good maintenance. We should be able to take that 50-year road surface and turn it to a 70-year road surface.
And I want to comment that Chuck and his people have been doing a very good job with doing that on all of them and extending the lives of where they can. It's just that one piece has never been.
It's a losing battle.
Yeah. So,
So,
We could look at overlaying on Pine Street as a temporary fix, but do we want to throw the money at?
Well,
temporary
if
fix?
it's a difference between an overlay at $200,000 and a proper at $1 million, sometimes you have to choose that lesser of those evils and put the $200,000 into it, keep it going for another 10 or 15 years while you can't find the funds to do, because as you'll see in our capital budget, we don't have those monies. So, yeah.
before we move on, so that stretch of the street is gonna cost around $90,000, so that leaves you like $10,000 if we are going with the 100,000. Is that going to be enough? Yeah, is that gonna be enough for
this year.
maintaining the rest of everything?
Well, and that's the thing, right, is that if we have a proper budget annually going forward, then not getting as much done one year means it gets sent into the next year and we have the funds to do it, right? If we can't get it done this year, we are not pushing everything back a year, we're just making sure we have the funds to do it year over year, and I think Councilor Marcelo.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of issues here. So in 2026, you've got 100,000 plus of that, which 55,000 is new money. What's the difference?
So right now, your budget is $45,000, so if Chuck is asking for you to increase it to $100,000 a year, it's $55,000 new dollars that we have to. put into the
So
budget.
instead of so in 2026, you need $55,000.
Yeah, and then it would stay
You
at
have
that.
what, 45,000 left over?
We have 45,000
No.
annually budgeted
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, 45, yeah.
So this is
We're adding
Okay.
55 and
some
this
plus. So that'll be 100,000 for the year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Roads capital reserve for 2026 is, how much money do we have there? 205,000?
We have 315,000 or 402,000 budgeted for 2025.
So we have 400,000 in the bank in roads reserve capital?
So in 2026, in roads capital, we're at $205,000.
So in the bank, money in the bank. Okay. And I was just wondering why you wouldn't, what would you use roads capital reserve for?
So the difference between maintenance, which is patching and that stuff,
Not saying.
Yeah. and even we could call this capital. The section that he's talking about that's currently gravel, we could call it a capital upgrade and use those funds. At this point, because your funds are so minimal, it doesn't matter where we take them from, you don't have enough money.
Well, I wasn't suggesting we would do.
Yeah,
Take it all, but.
But that's like when we do Pine, that's capital that will be there.
yeah, so those big projects that are multi-year, so the difference between capital and operational is anything that's gonna be used for more than a year should come out of capital.
So what you're saying is this $100,000 for each of the next 5 years is ongoing maintenance.
Operational maintenance, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Check.
Now, I'd like to do one other thing. I have a short alley that I drive in every day of the year. And I thought, geez, I go through the same mud puddles every year and potholes. And so I drove all the alleys in my area plus a bunch in other areas. And we haven't spent a nickel on alley maintenance in, well, 20 years I've been here.
You've only redone your alley twice.
Yeah, well, I guess I just think that it's time that some of those alleys we got some big water holes and mud holes and stuff in all of them. I don't think they maintain much.
Yeah, actually, I know that Chuck, his crew have done some of the alleys in town. Maybe not yours they don't do them on a regular basis. They do them as needed. And that's when, when somebody identifies a big pothole. I know back of, May and Gary's, you guys did some work out back there because there was big holes out there. So when they're identified, they get on it.
We try to,
Yeah.
as we can.
Yeah.
Money wise.
I would identify every alleyway in around Cedar and Tamarack of the major issues, including along Columbia Springs Drive where the new construction was. It's totally rock and built up. In fact, it's higher than the yards. Because
We actually
start
had to
building
deal
it.
with those two homeowners.
Yes.
Once they're done building, they're fixing the alley themselves.
Well, that's gonna be an improvement because all those alleys are very bad. And just about every alley in town that I drove, but I didn't get all of them.
And maintaining an alley is much like maintaining a gravel road, right? It's essentially a gravel road.
Yeah.
And so it is a high cost maintenance item. I mean, if we went in, we looked at every, however many kilometers of alleyway and we put that into a gravel road, we could get this Urban Systems or something to talk to us about cost of regular maintenance of those. To get a better sense this year, we can maybe make that something we ask them to give us a bit of an update on is what would it cost? How many kilometers of laneway do we have? What would be their best practice for maintenance of those laneways? And how often do we have to overlay and do a capital work on those laneways? Because they're probably not ever going to make up.
No, I agree with that, probably not going in and rebuild. I'm not I'm just saying that, the condition of them is pretty bad.
Yeah,
And,
not cheap, that's for sure.
basically, and I may be wrong, but it doesn't seem like it would be much more than, adding gravel and spreading to, the holes, and that's, not paving, you're not, packing or digging them out or running a grader through them or, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a simplified version, but I think it should be, looked at.
So
Because they are public roads, they are emergency exit lanes, there are a lot of them.
Yeah, emergency services would definitely use them.
So we are opening up a bit of a broader conversation about what is capital versus what is operating. And something like paving, when you're changing something from a gravel road to paving, it'll always be capital.
Yeah, capital.
Like an auditor will pick that out all day long and they'll move it into your capital reserve. And when we are looking at our stuff, I noticed that you've mentioned as long as it lasts more than a year, that's one determinant of a factor. Another is cost and whether or not the useful life of it has been improved, and if it is an improvement upon what was already there or existing. So usually a good example is like, let's say Chuck's truck, his entire engine breaks down, but we have to put in a $30,000 engine into his truck. That's technically considered a repair. Because we are going 1 for 1. Now, if you put in a supercharged engine that throws out 800 horsepower, that is a betterment, and then we're going to be capitalizing the cost of that engine to go in. So,
You have now, isn't it?
So that's what I was very simple, but yes,
Yeah.
all of those factors the auditors look at. For us, it's simple. The auditors fix it.
Yeah.
So maybe then for that paving, I think that paving we should probably move it into capital.
Yeah.
So that one, yes.
That particular project, yeah.
We can.
It's all part of the same thought here, but that we all don't have.
And I just wanted to, if we're okay with moving on from Public Works, Zach's not here, but I would just want to touch on fire and emergency services.
Sure.
And really the three-ish big things. That's for a couple of things around member recognition and community relations, which are great, but not necessarily something that you need to touch on But they have not had an increase in their volunteer rate in many years, I'm told. They make $10 an hour to participate as volunteers. We don't have the same obligations if they were paid on call. If they were paid on call, they would be making a lot more money. But council or the fire department is recommending, fire chief is recommending that we review their volunteer salary, their volunteer rates to bring it a little bit more modern. Again, it's $7.50 below minimum wage.
That's, excuse me, but I thought we did this last year.
No,
We talked about volunteer wages.
I don't think so.
Did we
Oh.
change anything?
We did, yeah, we did, we mentioned it, but we never did anything with it.
Yeah, I think Zach did bring it up, but I
Yeah.
don't think we ever actioned it.
Yeah,
He
okay.
did bring it up and we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that
I
time.
remember the chat about it. so-
and so for recruitment and retention for volunteers, and particularly in fire, I think is become quite challenging for most communities that have a volunteer department in particular. Paid on call is a little bit more stable, but volunteer is per call out or practice, right? Paid on call, you get a certain amount for being on call. And that's not how our service works. So there is some discussions about that. I haven't had a lot of discussion with Zach about it. We've only talked about his department a couple of times since I came on board. But it's definitely worth something council may want to consider, whether it's the full $15,000 request this year, or we bring it in as a year-over-year scheme. Perhaps we do, a $250 a year until we get to minimum wage increase per hour. I think the fire department wants to feel valued and wants that to be recognized through some monetary amounts.
I had a discussion with Zach about it. One of the other things that would help with is retention.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of the people quit because they feel that they're not getting as much as they think they deserve to be at these trainings, and they do get a lot of training and stuff to become the volunteer firefighter. So retention is the big thing that he's looking at.
Smart people run away from fires. Firefighters, I don't know. That's a decision I don't know about.
And all of the wages and benefits, or sorry, just volunteer wages that go into the fire department, that comes just out of our general operating reserve.
So, this, is that 15,000 a year they wanted? Or to bring them up?
15,000 more.
More.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they would go from a $35,000 a year budget to a $50,000 a year budget for salaries or for volunteer.
Okay, that's how it is. Okay.
I mean, with fire, there are some ways for us to consider some additional cost recovery that Zach and I have talked about that can help to offset that, but that's a process. And so that's something we'll start talking about more this year to bring for you for like moving forward in a year. The other big thing is the department records management system. We need to, it's out. Kelowna's, we've been using the system Kelowna has. Kelowna's no longer going to be using it. It's no longer supported. It's dated. So he's got a quote. It looks like it'll be about $5,000 for a proper records management system. So that's when they get dispatched and they start entering all their data into it. As well, our dispatch contract with Kelowna is coming up this year and it looks like it will double. It's less of a big number, but it's going from $760 to probably around $1,500.
What does that dispatch contract do?
So Kelowna dispatches our 911.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we should take a look at putting those volunteer wages in as a line item. And then discuss it as we get down to where the final numbers of the budget get to be.
Yeah.
And so maybe end up doing 7,500. But if we just talk about it like this, rather than, could we make a motion to put that in?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Or we make the motion that we increase the volunteer wages $15,000 per annum, subject to overall budget deliberations. Does that sound right?
Yep.
That's great.
Can I get a seconder? Councilor Whitesell. All in favor? Carried.
So I guess the big question becomes sort of are there things in this 2026? So you will see with new spending in 2026 for operations, it's $122,000. So 1% tax increase is $7,800. So I think council has to make some decisions here in regards to some of this work. If there are things that you must ask to be taken out.
So I'd push back on that and I would say I'd like to see this in the grander budget. And then once we get down to seeing what each operational versus capital piece is, you know, I'm relying on Annette and yourself and Sylvie to be going through that and to trying to make that work in the budget and see if it works first, and then come to us and say, here's what was nixed, here's what wasn't. What do you think about that from the other side?
Perfect. So if you want to make a motion with accepting, while we're doing our budget preparation, accepting all of these to go into the first draft of the budget, that would be ideal.
Subject to balance.
Yes, subject to final approval and.
Okay, I need a seconder,
Well,
Councillor Weitzel makes the motion and Councillor Marcel seconds it. All in favor? Carried.
Okay. So I'll maybe help walk us through the capital plan, and the team can step in and talk about why these things have gone into the capital plan. And this again, don't actually have enough money for everything, certainly not in the 5-year plan. So we should be looking at an updated asset management plan, so an investment plan. So currently, the 2017 plan tells us that in order to replace all of our infrastructure, sorry, let me just bring the document up. We would be needing to allocate between $855,000 and $1.3 million annually into reserves. To get to a place where in the next 20 years, we can replace all of our infrastructure.
What was that number again?
Between 855,000 and 1.3. And that's again, 2017 numbers.
Yeah, we had that conversation.
Yeah. So we're not doing that. That's crazy talk. But it's definitely something. So what I'm seeing with your reserve funds is that there's a heavy reliance on, if there's a surplus, we'll put it into reserves. We're using taxes to operate things like, so you're using typically things like your parcel tax for water and your frontage tax for sewer. Those wouldn't be used for operation to offset operational costs. Those would be put right into reserves. And right now with the rates that we're charging for water and sewer, which is significantly lower than the rest of the valley, we're not putting money into reserves on an annual basis for those two things. And those are our biggest, water and sewer are our biggest costs. So in 2017, our water system was worth 18.25 million, and our wastewater system was worth 18.22 million. Right, so those are our biggest, the two of those combined are more than half of our infrastructure costs. And we're not putting any dedicated reserve into those funds.
One of the scary things that it has been talked about at the UBCM is municipalities having the reserves going into a fund in the future. And that would mean every municipality will be raising their taxes, would have to raise their taxes significantly just to meet that. And we want to try to get a little bit ahead of it. We're not suggesting we raise taxes to meet with the demand right now, but it's something that will have to be looked at in the future to meet what BC is going to come up with.
Sorry, I'm just, so would this be like a new fund that's managed by the province that every municipality, so we get money from the province to kick back to the province, which will then kick back to us?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how it's going to work.
So
That's what they were talking about at the UBCM, so.
It's crazy, eh? So a placeholder of about 50,000 for an asset management plan. Now, we probably don't necessarily need that much because we're at a point where we're about 10 years, eight to 10 years into this one. But because there's been such a significant increase in the cost of building construction materials, like, you know, we're seeing that 20 since pre or post-COVID, 25% increase in there is kind of what we're at.
Yeah.
Right? It's like 5% year over year kind of thing. We need to look at this investment level again and become a little bit more modern. So that's why we would do an asset management plan. We also need to do DCC bylaw review because we're not collecting enough for DCCs to hold the developers accountable, or we're placing all of the burden on current property owners versus seeing people who are developing in the community to carry some of that, a more reasonable amount of that burden. There's, like, again, your DCC's pretty small.
Yeah, go ahead.
So say that again. The water system goes by my door.
Mhm,
I develop my acreage and put 5 houses on it. Tap in.
mhm.
I pay for all the work done in 5 acres or whatever I do now. What's the cost to the village for me to tap in other than the hookup fee?
So we're creating additional wear and tear. We may require additional treatments because now you're adding to the volume of the system. We may have to change pipes because you've now taken us past the diameter of that pipe's capacity, right? So there's a lot of parts to it that when people develop, especially if we're talking about development in an industrial area or multi-residential development like apartment buildings, there's a lot more that needs to happen. So one of the projects that's recommended is we don't have storage capacity. We're not storing enough water. And you'll see in places like Dawson Creek, they don't have enough water. They didn't have enough water this year to store for the winter to actually have enough water for the community. We can't be in that kind of position. So when we grow the community, our storage capacity grows up. The developer should be carrying some responsibility for increasing that storage capacity versus it sitting on the current residents or those current property owners.
So most of those are operating costs, which supposedly would be a portion of which would be paid by the 5 new houses put in.
Mhm.
So that you've got increased revenue from that side. And you really haven't had to do, and like it's gotta be on the cost to the developer, where we want development. And Carl isn't here, but we had a chat one day where there's something like 14 different things that the contractors got to meet just to get a building.
Yeah.
And are we encouraging development by adding a significant cost on the other end? And it's just it's
Yeah.
my argument that I don't know whether the one offsets the
Chicken
other.
egg stuff.
You gotta balance it, right? Because the cost of property here is probably lower than most other communities, so especially industrial property. And our DCCs are almost zero,
Yeah.
right? So do we significantly, if it's a $2 million project and we're charging $20,000 in DCCs, that shouldn't be a make or break, right? There should be a balance. Right now, we're so far behind everybody else, and we're behind other small communities in the province. So I looked at communities in the valley and some of the other small villages, and we're so far behind them that it's attractive, but the community suffers with that development a little bit. So it's kind of like a tipping point.
Go ahead. That's
If
what-
I can add to, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Sylvie.
Oh, sorry. And just as part of, the annual fee review, I recently did a survey, last week, about building permit fees. And I was anticipating we were going to be increasing our building permit fees because that is a specialty fee. That's easy, if you want to build a house and it's going to cost you an extra $500. That's not actually, like Ms. White said, not going to make or break it. Turns out we have the highest building permit fees in the valley right now. That being said, if you want to build a house in Invermere, you're going to pay $24,000 for a DCC.
Yep.
And we're going to collect $3,000 maybe on $500,000 house. So those are the costs that Ms. White is talking about. So we don't need to be there, because that would be that would be too much. But right now, we don't charge anything on a house. We only charge DCCs on a single family dwelling property as part of subdivision. And you can see what we've collected on 2 subdivisions and 1 commercial building. And that's it.
And so
Go ahead,
we're
Dawn.
also,
Who's next?
we are also, so Cranbrook has done a review as well. Cranbrook is way behind everybody as well. They are raising theirs significantly this year because they are so far behind. And most other municipalities are all increasing theirs as well. So they're head and shoulders above us on where they're collecting, and we're way behind. We need to start having development pay for the developments on that again.
Go ahead.
We'll never recover the cost to the residents for development, like DCC don't do that. And the issue is that the federal government doesn't want us to increase DCCs on residential, right? They actually want fewer DCCs on residential. So maybe there's less of an increase on residential, but a higher increase on industrial and commercial, right? We have to decide. And I think that's a place where we're missing opportunity for some of our capital work.
But with that being said too, the province wants us to be equal to what is going on with DCCs in the valley.
Right, and now we can use DCCs now to generate funds for fire, which we couldn't do before. We could only use it for hard infrastructure like roads and underground infrastructure. So now we can use it in parks. Now we can generate funds for fire through our DCC. So if we grow and we have more industrial lands, and depending on the types of industrial lands, we may actually have an impact on fire. We won't know until we get to that
Yeah,
point.
go ahead.
And I guess my argument on the DC, the fees, is that we haven't had any developments other than the last one was Benny Boys
Mhm.
and a couple of 128 parcels. It's just, it's expensive to develop when you sell the property. Right now, I don't know if there's any lot available in this town.
2.
Hmm?
I know.
Oh, there's more than that, if I may, yeah. And I'll counter with that, Counselor, with the fees are so low and it didn't increase subdivision. So it clearly isn't keeping people from subdividing at these low prices. So it's not the DCC that's stopping development. It really is, that probably isn't that much of a cost considering over and above the servicing. It's the servicing and the roads that are the cost, and we don't have control over those. We have control over the DCC, but we do not have control over any of those other development costs that have to happen. And it just is what it is.
It's just Apple, when it gets first development.
And so with DCC bylaw updates, you actually have to do an engagement.
Yeah.
So developers would have an opportunity to engage with the process around any changes to the DCCs. And technically, under the community charter, council is supposed to review the DCC bylaw annually. So I would just learn that in merit.
Yeah.
Because it hadn't been done in merit yet. So my
We've
CO.
done that every year.
Yeah, sure.
Well, the CO there was like, did you know we're supposed to do this? And we were like, so that was a new learning.
There's a few things like that.
Yeah, but you can see here in your capital plans that we've developed a 5-year capital plan. We have, the arena section of the capital plan, which is on our EK budget. We have things like the flagpoles, which we're looking for grant for. We won't proceed with. We're recommending it not be proceeded with unless a grant is obtained, because $20,000, that is actually like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Very big.
I thought these ones, right?
We did, and we had to kibosh it because we were going with the Ready Grant.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of other community groups that were asking for Ready Grant money that were deserving of it too.
We were substantially oversubscribed. for that.
It will be again this year.
So I think it was like, what, $140,000 was the ask?
Yep.
And we had nowhere near that.
Yeah, maybe 4. Awesome.
So we just, okay,
So we had to get rid of some things that were on there, and the table and
Yeah, so Mayor Doherty and I spent from about, what, 5:30 till
so yeah, 11.
till 11, working on that and divvying everything out. And yeah, that was one thing that we just had to.
where was this part of UBCM? Like,
No, this was for the Ready Grant.
Yeah, you were all invited.
Yeah, it's in the Premier.
in Invermere?
Yeah, so we have to go up there and listen to the presentations of everybody that's looking for money. And then we have to decide where we're gonna give our money to. And
Yeah, like I remember going through, like, it's kind of like what we have on our agenda tonight, right? Like we're doing ready grant allocation, different communities ask, and
yeah,
do you give and take, and
yeah, and so when we get to the actual meeting, there's a lot of stuff we have to leave off because we only got so much money that we can give out to every group. And so some of them don't get their full ask, some of them do, some of them don't get anything. And
Just
yes,
for-
go ahead.
For a little clarification, so we do have our red eye grants where we as the village go through and do that, but then there's also the money that CBD kicks in. And that's the money that Mark and I had gone up to Invermere, met with all of the other municipalities in the area. And that's where that funding was, and we divvied that out last year.
yeah, I don't remember being in
Yeah, go ahead.
It's been a while since I've been participated in the Ready Grant. One of the things that are great about the Ready Grants is we put in grants for, and we should put in a grant for $34,000. I did probably the 7 years I was on council prior. I think Radium gave us $500 one year for a project we had and was underfunded. And I never, in 7 years, had any other community contribute to the Canal Flats project. And I think that it's simply that it gets to be, you might as well take $34,000, apply $34,000 to Canal Flats projects and go on.
If I may, part of that though, why no other communities give us the money is because in the application, we asked for each area to donate. But it has to be a regional thing. So Radium doesn't really benefit from flagpoles. So then when I put my application in, I write 100% from Canal Flats. So then they don't have to. It doesn't even go to them because, or any other community, because it doesn't benefit anyone else but Canal Flats. So a lot of these projects that we have applied for over the year only benefit the village of Canal Flats. Sometimes I will throw something into Invermere, say like the chairs for the hall, but even then it would be like 10% of the ask. So part of that is from the people making the application.
And we
And
do,
not necessarily from the community.
yeah, and we do get asked from other communities from us, like Kimberly, for example.
The Kimberley Auxiliary Thrift Store, they asked for funding. A hospice society, I mean, obviously, we're gonna give some funds to hospice versus give ourselves some blank, right? So things like that. The food bank is really important to support, things like that. So, you know, there is a lot of funds that have to go, not in places we necessarily like, but it's the right thing to do. Right? We'd like to spend more money here, but
My personal opinion on that is there's things that benefit the whole valley, i.e. search and rescue.
Yeah. And we give to that.
And that would be a decent one that people contribute to. But buying chairs for Invermere, where we already pay a surcharge on our regional district and funding, is not something that we should be spending our money on.
And we're
Go through the whole list, and I think that maybe we should take a look at what we're giving money to.
Yeah,
Because I know one year that there were 7 grants for different kinds of pet controls. Like, we were going to neuter, what do you call them, feral cats, and then turn them loose, and I thought that was a great place to spend a couple of $1,000.
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
But I think that we should keep as much of the 34 as we can.
Well, we try to, yes. Go ahead.
So any counselor is welcome to attend that and provide feedback. Every single one of us got an invite to it at the last
Yeah.
one, so by all means.
And it's a good process. And we all do work together in the valley fairly well. And try to help each other out as much as we can. And we donate to each other's stuff when we can. Go ahead. Sorry, no.
Oh, sorry, me, okay, yeah, so I guess what I'll do is we're an hour and a half into the meeting, you have another meeting tonight. Budget takes a very long, detailed process. What I would do is, council look at this 5-year plan, because you have to pass a 5-year capital plan. And start thinking in this 5-year capital plan, how you're going to prioritize. So the staff have prioritized based on the year that they put it into the plan. And they will be able to, as we have discussions with council about whether council prioritizes things, like flower beds or security cameras or fire trucks, radio repeaters, those sorts of things, sewer camera upgrades. Council's going to decide, what's most important to the community. The important part for you to think about in this, the way I've presented you this, is in the notes section, it identifies where we might have funding for this, where we will have to apply for grants, and where there is nothing to fund these projects. So you will see that this year, there are a minimum of 4 projects identified that would be through the Parks Reserve Fund. However, that means if you look at the very, very last page of your package, that there would be like no money in the Parks Reserve Fund. Right, we only have in 2026, sorry, what am I looking at? 2026, we have $7,000 of requests. 2023, we have $23,000 of requests. We're starting with ultimately just under $20,000. And we're relying only on interest to increase the amount of that. So as we add projects to things, we take that money away because we're not adding to it. So we no longer have any money to pay projects.
This is part of where I'm blind right now, because we can't see how that is all translating. So it's great that we have all these asks in here. We got the starting position of some of our funds, but until we know what opening reserve plus revenue, less expenses, plus or minus transfers gives us where we're at our end, it's hard for us to be able to prioritize, because we don't know if we're going to be in a deficit in one or in a surplus in the other, or if one fund is a giver or one fund is a taker. And so we have all the asks right here, which is good. The one thing that I would want is we need to be able to marry these asks within our strategic plan. And then the second piece is, I would be helpful if staff were to rank what they see as the most important things within their stuff. And then we as a council can approve or, deny a budget based on.
So staff are very aware that we don't have significant reserve funds, and these are the things they've identified as really should do's or really must do's. So these are already identified. There's no nice to haves in here. These are all must do's in the capital plan. And what I'm providing to you in the notes and in the last section is we had, based on what we had as our audited 2024, but we're budgeted 2025. Ultimately, there's nothing going into these reserves after 2020.
Yeah, I was about to say right now we won't know
But
But
it's
that-
not, we're not expecting a significant surplus. So, you might get a few $1,000s in each of these reserves. But all of these reserves will be expended with your 5-year gap.
So how do you know for roads reserve capital that we've gone from 402 to 205?
Because that's what was budgeted in 2025.
You're going off of budget.
Because we did work, right?
Well, but that's just budget. We like whatever, like I know they're not audited actuals, but we should still be able to have something for when we actually approve the budget to be able to say, here is opening, plus 2025 revenue, less 2025
Yeah,
expenses.
year end is just.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I mean. That's why we're doing just the asks rate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand that part of it. But once we get down to approving a
Oh,
budget,
yes, absolutely.
we have to get to that. point.
Absolutely, you will see those year-end numbers, but Wiley, what we're telling you, really the picture I'm trying to paint for you is that the work that the staff identify as necessary cannot be funded currently. And that's the issue, and really, part of this is because there are very limited dedicated reserves in your plan. So in the financial plan policy, did I keep it up on my many things?
Oh, woodpecker.
We don't know what it is. Do we?
Is there-
Is it a bird?
Just don't fly up there.
Well,
sorry, sorry, in your 2024, where is it? In your, annual report, there's, sorry, I'm losing that is very distracting. In your 2024, annual reports, there is this financial plan policy. However, there's no dedicated reserve. So, I mean, there kind of is that reserves can't be are only gonna be based on 1%, or taxes increases will only be based on 1% increase from last year's taxes, no more than 5%, minus road frontage tax, minus this tax. And we're only gonna put stuff into reserves if there's a surplus. And your parcel tax and your road frontage tax will offset the cost of operating your water and sewer systems and reserves, except that based on the cost of operating water and sewer systems and our current debt that is related to water and sewer systems, we don't actually have any money at the end to put into reserves. So there's no dedicated reserve. So we're not growing reserves because we're not planning for it. And that's what I want council to consider is if you were going to choose a few things to do over the next 5 years, we haven't been keeping up with inflation in our budgets. So we're budgeting at less than 2% increases annually for inflation in our operating budgets. We're increasing user fees and water more than sewer, but water is a less than 3% annual increase. And because it's $10 increases, that actually is becoming less than a 3%, like the percentage goes down as we go along in the thing. So we're not keeping up with the cost of inflation of operating. And we are not putting any money away for future use. So everything that we collect basically goes into operating the community and nothing goes into saving for the future, saving for infrastructure costs. So if you're going to think about a couple of things, you have to think about how are we going to keep up with inflation and how are we going to dedicate funds to our reserve growth so that we can actually afford to replace aged infrastructure or grow the infrastructure, right? If we think about the community hall, for instance, we have no funding plan for the community hall at this point. We have some money to do the windows and doors, or maybe the windows or the doors.
both if we have enough money.
Okay. But right now, it's not secure, right? So any structural work, roofing, all of those things, we have no plan for how we're going to fund those projects, right? I have no plan for how I'm going to fund an $800,000 fire truck. No plan for how we're going to do, I'm sorry, Chuck, you had we have some paving upgrades that need to happen. Sorry, no, lift station number 2 in 2026 for $1 million. Right? No plan how we're going to do that. Water system upgrades, you see, I've started to put in the recommended, and I'm spacing them. We can space them out further, but at some point, these water recommendations are going to have to happen. And we have no plan for those upgrades because we don't have money to match grants at the minimum. So, you know, how are we going to keep up with inflation through taxation or user fees? And how are you going to grow your reserve funds? Those are kind of the two big things. And I'm not saying you have to grow all your reserve funds every year. I think that you have to identify 2 or 3 priority reserve funds that you're going to make a committed, budgeted contribution to, and not rely on surplus, which may or may not occur. And gets eaten up very quickly if we have an unexpected water main break. But this is a picture that we're trying to draw for you that things are not ideal. And it's gonna be luckily not us making those decisions. You guys get to make those hard decisions, but we have to start identifying, you know, what it is that we're going to do to ensure the community remains sustainable.
Yes.
And that's really the message that we want to send to you. I'm happy for if you have specific questions. I don't know how long people want to stay. If you have specific questions about any of these projects right now in the next year, for sure, the guys are here. They can answer those questions. If you have stuff you want to email me, we can generate some response for you so you understand between now and then. And we'll try and share it. If there's a question, we'll try and share the response with all the council. But if in 2026, is there any specific projects you have questions about? And maybe into 2027. But ultimately, we have to pass a 5-year capital plan that we cannot finance.
So what we've been doing, when questions are being asked of the CAO, it's been directed to all to everybody.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, we want everybody to have, I want to share, if I'm sharing a piece of information, I want to share it with all of you. So you have all the same information. So 26, 27 in particular, are there capital projects here you want to ask about? I don't want to keep you forever.
Go ahead, Patricia.
So for Mr. Fournier, the miscellaneous arena capital. Do you have any information?
So for the last, since we've been actually with the RDEK, that miscellaneous arena budget or capital has been in there every year. So it allows me to change doors. It allows me to, it's just a miscellaneous $25,000 gets there to allocate for capital projects that are unidentified throughout the year because they always come up. I replaced my boilers with them last year, my 2 Zamboni boilers. So it's not something, you know, it's just for unforeseen things that happen. So instead of going back to the RDEK for more money, we just throw that in there, and I do believe that in
We got
there.
a plan for it for this year or for 2025.
What's that?
We had a plan for the 2025. That boilers.
Yeah, it was the boilers we did for
Because we talked and you had extra.
Well,
oh yeah, yes, yeah. So for example, in 2025, at the end of the year, I had not expended all of my $25,000 budget. So I purchased a brine pump. So there's a few things in our plant that if they go, it's like 12 weeks away and you lose your ice and it's an absolute disaster. So we had room in our budget. So I purchased an $8,000 brine pump so that if the event that my brine pump goes, it's kind of the heart of the operation. If it goes, we have another one, we can swap it out and we do not lose our ice. So that's an example of our miscellaneous items.
And now we have a redundancy for one of our major
And that's RDK.
That's an RDEK, so that's been approved, the 25-year capital plan's been approved for the RDEK, and that's been in there and actually increased to 35,000, I think.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just an update maybe on what part of the operation and capital that's paid for by the RDK or not a lot of it's main plant conductor, those kind of things not part of the operation and maintenance? Why are they capital charged to the village as opposed to?
So the whole arena part is all RDA.
RDK.
Everything.
Okay. so
Yeah, we include it in our capital plan because it is work that he has to do, but it is already funded.
So the whole list of arena stuff is RDK?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
and we'll be having a separate budget meeting on that.
yeah, but that's not money we have to find.
No,
Well, okay, that's, I just wanted to get that right. The, I guess it's the 2027, I see we're looking for an accessibility grant on the $10,000 for the beach ramp. What was the other one I was gonna, the other one I was gonna ask about, are we going to do the fire and emergency separate? Or are we just working our way down?
Yeah, just, do as you see it.
Is it mandatory? Is it mandatory to replace the AG fire truck?
Yeah,
yes,
it's legislated. It also is impacted by underwriters, insurance, fire underwriters. They require that. Now, because the flats is so small, we actually get an extended period of time. We get an extra 5 years on our fire trucks. And so that's why we're able to push it out a bit.
Is there any program where you would have a truck totally overhauled?
This is an excellent question, and no, I don't know why. So basically, it's the pump is the only thing that they care about, but you can't just get the pump replaced. You have to replace the whole truck. And I think this has something to do with the fire truck building industry. Like you can't just get a new pump. You can't get an upgraded pump. You have to replace the whole truck.
and that's,
And I believe that this is the truck that has had the 5-year extension.
Yeah.
And then now we're on the every year extension and you can only have 4 of those. So we've already got one. And if it doesn't pass again, then we're hooped. So we have to cross our fingers and hope it passes. But I mean, we're down to the nitty gritty on this. So we have to start doing something and we can't dig our feet in any longer.
And so it's in the 26 budget as an $800,000 replacement, but ultimately it's going to be start and it will get spread out as we have the chassis built, as we have the pump installed, as we have, there will be parts. So it'll get spread out over those 3 years. It won't be in one shot, but we put it in here because it has to start this year.
and we're not just looking for new, we are looking at, cause cities have to get rid of theirs after so many years, and we're still allowed 10 years on whatever they get rid of. So we are looking at secondhand if it works for us. Most of them are too long for our building.
Yeah, so we'd have to, so for the majority of those current ones that are in municipal fleets right now, we would have to build a new fire hall to be able to get the truck in. Whereas we can custom build a new one that actually fits in our current fire hall. So where do we balance, right? How much is a new fire hall going to cost versus buying a new truck instead of a used truck? Where's the risk there? And I think ultimately a new fire hall is going to cost more than a new fire truck is going to cost. So we're probably better off trying to get to a point where we work towards the purchase of the fire truck because we can get it built to spec for this to fit into the hall.
And I have talked to Zach about keeping an eye out for trucks that would fit into the fire hall.
It seems to me that there's a UBCM claim because every village in this country is going to be running around buying fire trucks that are not worn out, not.
And it's
That's a UBCM problem that should be addressed.
And
it has been.
I think it's actually a resolution that's been standing for many, many years. And I just want to point out that in your 2011 tender comes to end of life in our 10-year capital plan as well. So that's another $1 million fire truck that needs to be purchased for the next 10 years.
Absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, and we've brought that up because you don't put any mileage on them, really. So the only thing you're looking at is making sure the pumps, condition is in good condition. But they're saying they want the pumps replaced every so many years. And to do that, you may as well replace the whole truck.
Sounds like a lucrative business opportunity.
That is, which is, actually what street,
The fire truck industry is interesting.
And if I may,
yeah, go ahead.
this isn't just for small municipalities, this is for large cities as well, because anytime there's a medical call, the fire truck has to go out. So it doesn't even get used, but the hours are recorded, and so they need to be replaced because they have too many hours, but they haven't even been to a fire. So this is a huge problem.
And it has been,
Every
yeah,
municipality.
and
not
it
just-
has been brought up.
Yeah.
Did he take the fees to UBCMs?
It has been brought up to the UBCM every year that I've been there.
So does the cities are the ones who control it?
Well, the cities don't like it either because it's costing them.
It's insurance. It's the
Yeah,
insurance.
the insurance
industry.
industry is demanding
That
that.
was the next question I was gonna ask, so we have a truck that is very functional. You can check it out and tell us it's all good. And so they say you gotta replace an $800,000 truck, and you say, we'll just run without insurance. Does it?
No,
It's not our insurance, it's
Oh.
residential insurance. Every residence in the community will no longer be able to get fire insurance.
homeowner insurance.
Okay, that didn't work out.
Big fire, big pharma, big fire, big insurance.
Anything further? Any other questions?
I
I know we'll have a lot more questions when we get more into the budget. And
Once we've got your end done, we can give you a bit more of where we've landed.
Why?
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
Electric service for the Christmas tree on the, at Voyagers and Voyager Park, I'm assuming that's what that is. Why wouldn't we put that in our read-I grant?
I
Go
can
ahead,
answer that. Thank you. That's not an eligible expense.
Yeah.
That's not we've tried and it was rejected.
Thank you. Well, that's that. Same with the beach access, ramp. And I we're looking for accessibility.
Yeah, there are a number
Yeah.
of accessibility grants out right now. RBC has one, we might actually, yeah.
Yeah, we can. So there's several that we're looking at applying for. Hopefully we receive some. Go ahead.
there, we had something on our budget from last year that was approved that I'm not sure if it was a ready grant and it got cut, but down at the source of the Columbia, there was supposed to be the picnic pads that are.
Oh, right, yeah.
They're deteriorating and they were gonna get fixed in this calendar, but I don't think they ever did.
If I
Okay.
may, was that part of the wilderness? No, Columbia Lake Stewardship Society, not that upgrade, because
No.
we had a presentation from a representative, yeah,
Colin, his last name, Carter.
yeah. The work, I
That was
never heard,
fencing.
yeah, I never heard back.
So yeah, that was fencing. This one was separate. This was actually for the concrete pads that the concrete picnic tables sit on that are at the two spots along the walking trail.
Is this the
Go
short?
ahead,
I can
Matthew.
speak on that.
Not sure to show you.
Oh, go ahead.
I can speak on that. That's my department. Just a crumbling pad. So, it didn't get done last year. I mean, I had staffing issues last year with, the gentleman resigned, or Mr. Lario resigning in March. So some of the projects didn't get done because we were short-staffed for 4 months. Yeah, so it's just a pad that's crumbling that needs to be replaced. It's a little bit more complicated because it's not like we're gonna drive a gravel truck.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I said, like, that's kind of the bigger thing that I'm seeing. So we budgeted for all these things in our budget last year and we have, revenue expenses, transfers, et cetera. And so if we didn't do something in 1 year, in theory, we should have that money for that. So I need to see kind of where that surplus is.
Well, guys, I think that the majority of the things, so certainly in the operational budget, I did mention one that was carried over the pavilion
Yeah,
stadium.
that's right.
And so these guys gave me notes and I tried to include if there was a note where something was carried over. And so we'll make sure that that's clear as well. And especially once we get the cost, right? We've budgeted for it. Is it a 5,000 to budget? We only spent 4,000 of. Well, once we get to year end, we'll have that all for you, for sure. we'll be a little closer.
And when is our next, like, when are we gonna do a strategic planning meeting at the committee? of the whole?
Yes.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do as we work through budget in particular, is, before Annette goes on some holidays, I'd like to have our first budget meeting, council meeting, regular meeting of council for budget, so that you can see our preliminary budget. So we have a few things that we'd like, I think that might give value to you, is for us to kind of give you what our current rate of increase has been for our operational budget versus something like a 3% or 5% increase in our operational budget. So you can see what we would look like for inflation. I also have a spreadsheet of what the water and sewer rates would look like if we went from what we're currently increasing to a 3%, 5%, 7% annual increase. So be able to show you some of those things as part of the budget discussions. Then once you've kind of given us that direction of where you want us to go with the budget, we would then prepare an open house for the community to come in and kind of give their input into what they want to see, what their priorities are for capital, what their, how they feel about what could potentially be a projected increase of, 5%, 8% to their taxation. We want people to see that. We want to be able to do some of these slides as presentations for people around how we do the budget, what's the requirements of our budget. And the recognition that when we talk about a 5% increase to a budget, we're talking about 5% of our portion of your property taxes. And if we treat, we did some math the other day, if we treat every property as one category, one class, 1% tax increase equates to about $13 per property. So
Per 100,000.
100,000.
per property. Yeah, it was per property. I will confirm that. We maybe did the math differently. But ultimately, we're not talking about, people hear percentages and it sounds very scary. But when we talk about real dollars and it's a $50 bill versus your imagined, my budget or my taxes are going to be $3,000 instead of $2,500. It's a $50. We gotta put people in the right frame of mind.
And yeah, we can only control our portion of taxes.
Yes.
Provincial taxes are going up. Other taxes are going up as well. Our UK is going up. So yeah, we can only control our portion of that tax.
Yes. And so we have to make that very clear. So one of the things that's required under the charter is that you have a public engagement, and it doesn't describe, or it doesn't tell us it doesn't give us a very good description of what that is, or it doesn't give us any details, but it's beyond your open council meetings or your open committee meetings. You actually have to have some form of, whether it be a survey or it be a open house or something, or a town hall meeting. You have to under the charter. So we're going to do that this year. And then it gives you guys the opportunity to hear some community feedback before we go into second and third, potentially second and third drafts or second and third reading, depending where we're at, so that we can hopefully have this budget pinned down by the end of March. And in that time, once I get here, we'll also do and I should be here mid-February.
Okay. Anything further?
Just scheduling for the next budget discussion.
We will schedule, we'll get back to you about that. We're gonna. look at
Is there
scheduling.
any kind of thoughts of doing like a 6 or 8 hour Saturday meeting? Trying to get this done.
I would ideally not, and if we were gonna do weekend meetings, I would probably break them into like 2 sessions, one for operational and one for capital, because nobody's brain, unless you're an accountant, nobody's brain should be thinking about numbers for them. And I even know some accountants who don't want to think about numbers for them.
Okay.
So we'll get back to you, Annette and I just need to sit down and look at her holidays and when she thinks we can get year end done, so that we can focus more on budget.
I thought we didn't give Sylvie holidays.
Oh, no, Annette.
Oh.
Going after she comes back.
This year.
That's right.
It's very exciting, it's very exciting.
And I get a mover and second to adjourn. Councilor Whitesell and Councilor Marcotte. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, guys.
So,